Southside Speedway Illustrated.
Harefield seems to be back in the groove after winning his second feature of the 95 season, but Lockhart's consistency keeps him atop the points race. Morris again wins in last week's Grand Stock event, and many of the division's other competitors are asking just what can they do to track down that number 7 bear. Skelding finally found his way back to the Charger class victory circle after being beaten the past few weeks by Great House and Balduck. And in the mini stocks, Pam Mays continues to be third best, still chasing the rear bumpers of Phelps and McRae. Hello, everyone. Welcome to week 9 of Southside Speedway Illustrated. Can you believe it? 9 weeks, no rain, and we're going to bring you more action tonight. Of course, the highlights. But first, we're going to talk about the issue of the redraw. It's been 4 weeks now, and many of the drivers are against it. Some drivers feel like it actually helps them improve their driving skills. We talked to track personnel and the drivers and some crew members about this issue. Yvonne?
Thanks, Freddie. We're also going to talk about tires in this issue. How expensive is it to run? How often do you need to change it? We'll talk from everybody from minis up to late model. That the highlights when we come back on Southside Speedway Illustrated.
And look, he doesn't work on his car. He reads Cosmo.
So that's the secret to Billy Morris's success.
Yes, it is, and we're looking at it now.
Welcome back, everyone. Well, one of the issues here at Southside we're covering tonight is the redraw issue. Now, several weeks back, they forced many of the top contenders to redraw. If you qualified on the pole, it'd be a $25 bonus, and then the driver would have to redraw to determine where they would start in the top 5 for the race. Now, one of the men who this really was set out after was Mr. Billy Morris, who was pretty much dominating in the first few events, and then the redraw came about. How do you feel about the redraw now we've had a few weeks to work with it?
Well, I've benefited from it one time, which I was fortunate. Cars are getting faster every week. You know, it's just a matter of luck. You know, if people are getting faster in qualifying, they'll out-qualify me, so it isn't designed for me. You know, sooner or later, I'm going to be qualifying, barely making the top 5 before it's over with. You got 4 or 5 guys out here every week that are running fast, so it doesn't affect me at all, hardly. It's just the luck of the draw.
Does it make for a more competitive race?
It makes for a more fun race, let's put it that way.
I still don't like it. I really haven't benefited so far as starting. It seems like my favorite position is 4th.
Now, it makes for a more interesting race anyway as far as the fans' perspective.
It makes for a more interesting race, but you have hard feelings in the pits afterwards sometimes.
And now the rest of the field seem to be catching him. Should they drop the redraw now that everyone seems to be equaled up?
Yeah, I'd love to see him drop a redraw. It seems to be causing a few accidents up front, too. You're putting some faster cars in the back, people get anxious, it's racing.
Oh. Billy Morris pulls the 5. He's fighting his way through. Where are you?
Third.
Third? That means he's starting behind you.
Yeah.
Is that trouble?
I don't think so. He's a clean driver. He's fast enough to go around with no problems.
Now, Grand Stocks aren't the only class to be affected by the redraw, also the Charger division. And Brad, you were the top man up until the redraw. The redraw came out, and now there's been a few other competitors that's found their way into victory lane. How do you feel about it now that a few weeks have passed by?
Well, I don't know if I probably haven't changed my feelings too much about it. You know, I still think that the object of racing is go as fast as you possibly can, and may the best man win. But I also understand from a fan's point of view, I think this redraw does, you know, show a little bit more competition, apparently.
The people who work on the car, it might be a little more work involved after a night of a redraw, beating and banging your way back to the front, because you do have to beat and bang here a little bit at Southside to get back up front. But as a fan's perspective, that's what they enjoy seeing.
Yeah, you know, I think you made a good point. You know, as a driver, again, a little variety, I guess, can help me out in terms of learning. As a fan, the competition seems to be better. But as a crew member, I have a feeling they're the ones that probably get hurt the worst, because they work all week long, 6 days, and the 7th day they want to sit back and see what they did, and sometimes they may not get to see exactly what they were trying to produce. But
I'm learning as I go every week on the high side. I think it was my last win. I was on the high side, and unfortunately I got a good jump, and the high side seemed to work pretty good for me.
So you've learned actually you can run another lane as opposed to what you've been running before, and found a groove that works for you that you might not have found if it hadn't been for the redraw and someone starting that was a little bit slower in front of you.
Oh, yeah. I'm come out here, I normally run my regular groove, but once, you know, you get on that high side, you know, you just got to learn to drive on the high side. But
for.
Well, obviously you two are talking about the redraw and how y'all gonna fix it tonight, right?
I don't have much to say about the redraw. I got the pole tonight. I would like to stay in the pole, but, you know, being I have the pole, I don't have much to say about, you know, and nothing I can do about. We're just going to mess up our car a little more. If I start 5th, I mean, I'm going to have more dent on my car than anything else.
So it takes a little bit of driving skill and a little bit more damage to the machine in a redraw.
Yeah, a lot more bing and banging.
Now talking with a track promoter and owner is Joe Baldassi. Joe, tell us about the redraw. How did it come about? It seems that at first it might have been a runaway, but you took care of that 3 weeks ago.
Well, there was a runaway, and the fans began to complain some. And a redraw is nothing new. It's something that has been done since back in the 70s, either redraw or you pick your peel out your hat or some way or another. And what we've done is anybody was sitting on the pole, we give them an extra $25, and then we had a redraw, and it seems to be working real fine, and everybody seems to be satisfied.
Now, satisfaction has to be, I guess, the key word here. There's a lot of competition that people aren't expecting, i.e. just last week, Brad Skelding, who got the pole, started in 5th and came back through the pack to win the Charger Division race, as well as Billy Morris in previous weeks. He also had the pole, ended up in 3rd or 4th position, came back to win the race. The fans seem to be getting a bit more competition. Everybody knows how difficult it is to pass at Southside. Now you're not just a one-lap wonder anymore. You win the lap, you come back, and you win the race. The fans are getting a little bit more out of this.
Right, the fans are enjoying it more. They're staying on their feet when these things like this happen, and it makes a more interesting race.
How about the mini stock? Do you think you may see the same thing with a mini stock? It always seems the same 5 or end up in the same 5 positions. What about the mini stock?
Well, what we really need is more mini stocks. I wish some people would build some more. I'm going to call down in the Tidewater area next week and see if I can get some of my guys and girls that were down there to start coming up here. And so we don't have to go to that. But if we have to, we have to.
All right, ready? Late models?
No, the late models, they start on where they time trial, and that's the way it will be.
All right. Speaking with Joe Baldassi, let's go back to Freddie Clark as he's standing with Gary Fox.
I don't think it's really mattered, to be honest with you. It seems like the same cars are still finishing up front. It is giving some of those guys, you know, opportunity to have to pass somebody, so it's making it a little bit more exciting for the fans in the stands, I think.
Now, opinion we've gotten from some drivers, it actually may improve their driving skills.
Yeah, that's what a lot of them have said, although I think as a whole, most of them would rather you not redraw, but until they get lucky enough to, during the redraw, end up on the pole, and then they kind of like it. And then I have to admit, there's a few of them that say, well, I really would rather not start up in front of some of those faster cars, and they're a little intimidated too, so it has its pluses and minuses.
It does teach some of these guys how to work around the outside groove or the inside groove. How do you get around another driver that's just a little bit slower than you? It's a real important thing to learn at a short track, and this is a short track.
Well, from the redraw, we'll talk about handling. And at Southside Speedway, a key thing in handling would be your tires. Let's talk now in several divisions. If we go over what is the key thing about tires, getting new tires, running the old ones again. In the Charger division, we're going to talk to the guru of tires, and this is Butch Minner, famous father of Tony. Let me show you how I flip Minner. We're talking about the importance of tires in the Charger division. How often can you drive with the same tire before you need to change them? How key is it with a chassis setup in a Charger to get new tires, and how often?
Well, it depends on the car and the setup, really. A whole lot of them out here are buying them about every 2 or 3 weeks. We can't afford them, so we buy them about once every 3 or 4 months.
And how do you find that your setup is different? How long can you last competitively with this situation?
Maybe 4 weeks at the most.
Tire bill, you say 360 for 4 tires in the Grand Slam Series. Are tires here much like you see in Winston Cup, where some of the cars with their chassis setups, it takes 30, 40, 50 laps for them to come in on a track of this size? Now, when that breaks down, that means you've got to run 2 races before a set of tires really comes into you.
You're exactly right. That's exactly the way our car works. And they come in after you get them real hot. You know, you run 10, 12 laps, and which is quite a few laps to get heat in it, because we run such short races that, you know, you need to go now. You know, you need your speed from get-go, and our car seems to be dialed in more to be consistent and not fall off as much as some of the other cars.
We're running the same tires we had on the car from last year.
And how much do you have to chase the chassis as far as putting new tires on as opposed to running the old rubber?
if you get it running pretty good on the old tires, and you put new ones on, it usually just helps. You don't have to go too much. It's real hard going the other way. When your tires go away, then you have to start chasing it, trying to make up a difference. For the lack of tire you have. But if you got new tires, you don't have to change too much.
Even in the mini stock divisions, tires are a big issue. We're looking here at Pam Mason. She's going through the classifieds, looking for a good deal on tires. Pam, we're talking tonight about the importance of handling in the mini stock division. Of course, the key to that are the tires. Give us a little bit about what does a Pam Mays crew goes through as far as tires. What does it cost? How often can you change them?
Basically, you start out with a fresh set at the beginning of the year, and at this point, we need another set, period. 5, 6 races. The tires are going away. The temperatures have been different on the track, and the cost of the tires.
What are they?
It's right at $380, right at it. That's including tax. So it's pretty expensive when you consider you're only going to run 5 to 6 races off of them. In this division, you think of it as being somewhat cost-effective, but we spend as much money on tires and other equipment as some of the other divisions do.
We have to run a new set of tires every night. By 21 races, it's upwards of $10,000 for the late model series to run.
Now, when you approach sponsors, I'm sure that's somewhere in your lineup that how much it's going to cost you to run. But can you be competitive at all if you're not running new rubber out here in the late model?
No, a couple of years ago, you were able to buy new rights and run old lefts, but you can't do that now. Everybody's putting tires on, and it's no way you can run without new tires.
Now, the tires stay consistent, the tires y'all get from Hoosier here. A lot of the tires we see each week when the Winston Cup Series goes to a different track, it's a different compound of tire. Do y'all get the same compound every week, or are you chasing those tires?
No, it's pretty much the same compound. The problem a lot of us have had this year, though, is the tire stagger change. We had a tire shrink on us last week. Everybody, Shane had a tire shrink last week. One week they shrink, one week they swell, and that's the problem we're having with them. The last couple of years have been pretty consistent, but this year we've had a real problem with this tire size during the race.
Well, new rubber, old rubber, it's very important here at Southside to have those good tires. And we'll see the highlights when we come back after this commercial break. Welcome back, everyone. Always plenty of fireworks here at Southside. Let's go to the highlights and see the fireworks during the racing action. Beating and banging, the Charger division kicked off tonight's racing action. LaValle Balduck would win the pole, but drew 4, handing the top spot to Michael Greathouse. Tommy Tatum worked his way into the number 1 spot as Balduck lost a door panel. Watch as Balduck gets sandwiched amongst the lead pack drivers and losing that panel, bringing out the first caution. The 3 former Charger winners would fight for second as the green returned. Greathouse to the inside coming off turn 4, shoving his way into Tatum. Then wedging the number 16 between himself and Brad Skelding as they hit turn 1. The remainder of the field would have to take evasive action as Skelding and Balduck would get hung up coming off turn 2. Now Greathouse would use that right front fender to knock Tatum's door as he wanted the lead. Greathouse would have to remount his charge after nearly losing his ride in turns 1 and 2. Even with his ride badly beaten, Balduck charged his way back through the pack. But up front, Tatum would pull off his first win, followed by Greathouse, Ricky Sanderson, Ricky Vaughn, and Mike Hall. 3 strong cars behind you. Sooner or later, it came down to just you and Greathouse.
Yeah, I got sideways. I hated for it to go out, for Brad and LaValle to go out like that. I got sideways first couple of laps, and Brad, he was underneath. I mean, the car straightened up, and Brad was right there, so I'm sorry LaValle had to get caught up in all of it. It looked like he was trying to miss one another and just got hung up. But I got to take my hat off to Mike Greathouse. He was all over me. I lost my brakes about 5 laps into the race. I had no brakes, and I was having to just lift way early and kind of coast in the corners to try to get off.
Again, it was a familiar front row with the mini stocks, Chris Phelps and Tyler McRae leading the field. Phelps would seem to have no contenders early on as he quickly assumed the top spot with McRae falling in line second. Pam Mays would find herself in the familiar 3rd position, chasing the top 2. It would again be the 1-2-3 punch in the minis. Phelps, McRae, and Mays leading the battles behind. Battles like the Bradleys, Wayne and Brian, as they contested for the 5th spot, with Wayne taking the position and Brian pulling off a great save after he nearly lost his ride coming off turn 2. Lap traffic would turn what looked like a sure win for Phelps into a last lap shoving match. Mike Hammer would slide into the front stretch grass as McRae moved by Phelps to pull off his 3rd win of the season. Phelps would get to the stripe second, followed by Mays, Randy Dean, and Wayne Bradley.
We tried different things, and finally clouds came out, cooled it off pretty good, and we had a good setup, just couldn't run with Chris too good, and we finally got up there, and he had a little problems, and we pulled it off.
Oh, the lap traffic kind of came into play there, didn't it? That last lap.
Yeah, that's racing. You know, you got them there, you got them everywhere. And
Eddie Johnson was back in the saddle and on the pole for the late model feature. Rusty Wood would go from the outside front row as the field awaited a brief rain delay. Johnson would lead the field to green as Wood tried to hang on to second over Bugs Harefield. Phil Warren would spin early on and would become the first car to go a lap down. In the mid-pack, Wayne Grubb and David Goad would go at it for position on the track as Grubb stuck it low, forcing Goad to the high side and against the boilerplate. Wood slipped back to fourth during that tussle and now was trying to hold off the challenge from Franklin Butler. All the while, Johnson was widening his advantage. That was until he closed on a pack of slower cars and Harefield made his charge for the lead. Several times, the wise Pontiac would get the nose under the Ashland Ford Thunderbird. Finally, on lap 60, Harefield would use Wayne Grubb as a pick and took hold of the top position, leaving Johnson to contest with the lap cars. The blue duo, Butler and Bubba Urban, were having another great battle for the 4th spot, which finally would go to the 46 of Urban. Up front, Harefield was in clear control as he lapped Rocky Robbins with 15 laps remaining in the event. Robbins and the team had worked especially hard in the past weeks, were still unable to find that race setup they had been searching for. The race for second now caught everyone's attention as Johnson and Lockhart went in a door-to-door battle for the second spot. Robbins would have even worse luck with only 3 laps remaining in the event. He, Chris Dodson, Scott Willingham, and others would tangle in turns 1 and 2, bringing out the first yellow on the night's feature. Harefield would claim his second straight win in the closing laps, with Johnson holding on to the second spot, followed by Lockhart in third, with Urban and Butler winding up 4th and 5th.
I got a little bit loose, and Bugs' car is running real good tonight, and you know, we just missed setup a little bit, but the Ashland Ford, Swisher Hygiene, Thunderbird was really running great tonight.
Will we see you back next week?
That all depends on how things go with the Busch car. Right now we got it down to body shop, having a body put on it, and just kind of had a little bit of time to come out here and run and see if we get this thing dialed in a little bit better. You know, we come out here 2 weeks ago, and a lot of people felt like we had more than what we needed, but we showed tonight that these guys out here keep working and keep coming back. And you know, Bugs is strong and always been strong, and you know, I think this should maybe hush some of the things that's been going on for quite a while.
Eddie Johnson, he'll take second tonight. Well, Shane, for a few weeks there, you're pretty much dominant. Now you seem to be chasing everyone else.
I tell you, now, Eddie, he's awful strong. Bugs, he changed the suspension over to exactly like this car here, and what can I say? You know, we've run that type of suspension for 3 years, and it works for us, and obviously you see it's working for him, but we've been having brake problems for the last few weeks, and we're going to go back and work on it again, keep on plugging away. We can't give up. We'll get our races, I'm sure.
Shane Lockhart, he finishes up third. Let's go to your winner. Bugs, you seem to find the setup that works now. 3 wins and 7 top 5s.
Well, like again, you got to thank Neil Cully and Rocky Rod and all them guys that's back us for their support and help, and Butch and Manuel and all them over the years, and didn't thank my family, my dad and all them who helped me. And thank my crew who stands by me, and everybody put in 100%, and results is winning. And we're a little off some nights, but the last couple of weeks we were right on.
Shane told us you've changed the suspension on this car.
He don't know what I got.
That sums it up from your winner tonight, Bugs Harefield. Billy Morris claims another pole, but the draw would invert the top 5, giving the front row to Worth Red and David Zimmer. The field would get green, but would quickly go to caution for a pileup in turn 1. Relined for a complete restart, and again the field went under green. Side by side, Zimmer and Red, as Morris went to the inside of Laverne Cole. Cole would come down, and Morris would go spinning, collecting the cars of Bill McGonigal and Bart Smith. Several other cars would also be part of the incident. Red would lead the field back to green with pressure from Zimmer. Zimmer would work to the outside groove and take the lead as they worked around the lap car of Herbie Williams. Robbie Langford and John Eversole, both part of the first lap caution, would contest positions as they grazed by the spinning Carl Salvatore. Bobby Curtis took over second spot and turned the attention towards the leader. With 5 laps remaining, Curtis was all over Zimmer, but he just couldn't get under the number 16. Zimmer gets his first victory of 95 over Curtis, Red, Langford, and Chad Mason.
I saw him creeping up on the scoreboard there, and you know, we had a real good run, so I'm really excited about it, and really like to thank Jim and Paul Ann Thacker for the car. You know, worked that really good. It's a lot of money, but you know, it was available, and they knew I was without a ride, and they really helped me out, and I'd really like to thank them.
His first of the 1995 season, David Zimmer, your winner in the Grand Stocks. Fireworks continue here at Southside. Always plenty of fireworks, and we'll have more for you next week on Southside Speedway Illustrated.